Hello indie game fan, more awesome indie games are out this week, including Pocket Mirror GoldenerTraum, a remaster of a game from 2016, which will have a new ending, 2D animated sequences, New Game Plus, and more. I don't know if it's a translation issue, but I have no idea what a GoldenerTraum is, where it comes to us from a 5-person team out of Portugal and looks interesting, being a horror adventure title made in RPG Maker. I do think that there's levels to RPG Maker games, and am by no means knocking games made in that engine, but this looks spooky and creepy and should be for fans of the genre. We also have the release of this long-anticipated third-person open-world RPG Trail of Ayash, one that has indigenous people as the main protagonists, as they struggle to survive in a world dominated by myths and legends. Strangely enough, this developer has put 2 cinematic trailers up front on their Steam page, but don't worry, I have some glimpses of gameplay later on, where it looks like an ambitious RPG title with lots to do and an open-ended story. However, it is being made by just 2 people, so I don't know about the quality given the scope, but fingers crossed it is at least decent.
The great castle of Alchemists has met with a disaster. Fed by greed and corruption, we must awaken him. First of his kind, last line of our defense, Bellator de Alchemia.
This video is brought to you by Castle of Alchemists, a fast-paced action tower defense title where you play as the alchemically enhanced warrior Bellator, having to protect your masters from the incoming hordes of enemies. I love my tower defense titles, so of course this game is of interest, where your ability to directly participate in combat will keep things interesting instead of just having to wait around while the towers do the work. Add to that the pretty art style, variety in towers, traps and enemies, and you have quite the prospect, with more weapons, upgrades, traps, towers and maps to be added through the course of early access, but the core gameplay systems are fully functioning as of release. Hey, if you made it this far, subscribe to my weekly newsletter to keep on top of all things indie games, link in the description below. We have had our share of relaxing city builders in recent memory, where another title to add to the list is Blockville, one that is inspired by children's toys, so think train and car sets, Lego blocks and more, where you're building a town out of these components to cater to the needs of your people. However, while generally relaxing, this title does have resource management and scenarios like global warming, space race, UFO arrival, dinosaur madness and pandemic, so it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's more interesting to me as compared to the more puzzle-like alternatives in this space.
Last one then, is it?
On a similar note to Blockville is Tin Hearts, a puzzle adventure game where you're constructing increasingly complex systems in order to get your troop of tin soldiers from one place to the next, coming to us from the people that worked on Fable, so I think it might be of interest.
What's this, Helen? Have you seen this?
However, I do think that there might be a tonal issue with this game, where the core concept of this is like Lemmings but with cute toy soldiers, and yet the music used in this story trailer is pretty intense, perhaps more than it needs to be, since while the developers are trying to tell the emotional tale of a genius inventor, it kind of directly clashes with the cute toy soldiers, so it might be a mess, but either way, I'm interested to see how this plays out. Another game with quite the pedigree is Firmament, coming to us from Cyan Worlds, who are the people that made Myst, the original first-person puzzle adventure game, where their latest has you traversing across 3 unique realms, where it's all a big mystery to the extent that the trailer and Steam page doesn't really tell you what the game is about. Just one bigger title this week in Starship Troopers Extermination, coming to us from the developer of Squad, and it's also a first-person shooter, but of course with the legendary IP. This is a co-op shooter as you take on swarms of bugs, where I'm tempering my expectations since I've seen promises of great Starship Troopers games being made and broken over and over again, but it looks like it has a good shot of being great. Smaller games begin with BarnFinders Bid Wars DLC, the latest paid update to a popular first-person title with a horrible trailer since it doesn't tell you anything.
Tragic story
I'm so scared, Mother.
about the living and the dead. Able to change everyone. Who will touch her?
There are a number of spooky titles this week, where I quite like the look of Castle of Secrets, a grimdark adventure game about murder and curses, but the title is awfully generic.
What happened with me?
You died, Miss Susan.
Mountaincore has had a share of ups and downs, since I remember covering the demo of this game back in 2016 or 17, where the trials and tribulations can be found in a Steam post on their store page, where, long story short, the game previously known as King Under the Mountain is relaunching as this, being a Rimworld-style colony sim about dwarves and might be pretty good. The Japanese title looks like a fun action-adventure game where you play as a nine-tailed fox with the ability to transform, using this to solve puzzles and to access new areas, and looks like relatively light-hearted fun. The release of Soul Delivery is a weird one since as of yesterday, it was supposed to release on the 21st, but when I checked today, apparently it is out now and has Chapter 1+2 slapped onto it, with Chapter 3 being a paid DLC at a later date, so it seems like a little bit of a red flag. But anyway, this is an adventure game where you play as an amnesiac robot in a city without humans, having to figure out what happened. We finally have the release of Dead Ink as well, a top-down Souls-like RPG that is level design based around verticality in every sense of the word, being set in a massive tower in the middle of a desert. You are, presumably, having to make your way to the top of the tower, having to battle enemies to harvest their ink in order to craft weapons and items. Being able to push enemies off ledges or to intentionally descend levels looks like an interesting mechanic for exploration, where the dizzying heights of this causes my legs to shake when pointing the camera downwards, so if you have a fear of heights, this game might not be for you. One of the more interesting looking games of the week is Humanity, where you play as a Shiba Inu in charge of herding a massive crowd of humans to the goal in the level. It is super weird looking but seems to have previewed well. We're not sure how big this Japanese studio is, but the game is certainly one to watch.
is my domain.
It is time for our return.
We do have another update of interest with V Rising Secrets of Gloomrot, a content drop for this massively popular survival action RPG where you play as vampires, in that while this game looks like Diablo, it has survival and base building elements as well.
Vampires run!
Let the feast begin!
This massive update revamps the entire world, adds a new territory system, allows you to build multi-level castles, adds a new zone in Gloomrot, improves the combat and adds new enemies and bosses, looking to make this even better.
Woven throughout ploughers' fields, fishers' towns, webbed caves, fractured lands, dormant lays entombed remnants of the past, rotting, twisted, unnamed. The Brotherhood reigns over realm, concealing magic, obedience in favor. They rule by faulted vows and valor. Adventurers no more, their relics seized. First heroes hunger for power, they aim to appease.
After a little bit of a delay, Greedventory releases this week a pixel art roguelite RPG that looks like it has the classic turn-based combat, but that is a mirage since the action takes place in real time and you have to use your mouse to interact with on-screen elements such as having to deflect enemy attacks. The weird, strange, low fantasy world does creep me out with some of the monster designs, but the real-time element is one of the most unique control schemes that I have come across. The pixel art looks great as well, and refreshingly is not an early access release, so I'm excited to check this out.
Surge. Show them hell with every spell, and arm yourself to crush and burn. But don't get too brash. Whereas your path would cross with those with cunning tricks and twisted minds, depraved science, vexatious deeds, and those who shall defeat you in your greed.
This 2D action platformer is perhaps the dark horse contender for most promising game of the week, since our protagonist has been chosen as the sacrifice to the abyss, being thrown into the endless darkness, but unwilling to accept fate, our hero attempts to get back to the surface. I might be wrong, but I thought that the initial marketing material had this billed as a Metroidvania, but all that is gone now, so it might be a more linear experience as you move from one area to the next, while still retaining the combat and platforming sections, making Ellipse a curiosity, with a special mention going to Patreon member and indie game ultra fan Sean H, where you can find more action platformers in this video.